So we have a divided Palestine, physically and also politically, where Gaza is in control, Hamas is in control of the Gaza Strip, and Fatah is controlling the West Bank. But so then they had a ceasefire agreement worked out, the Israelis and Hamas, where they promised not to shoot each other for, I guess, a year or something like that. And Hamas held to it. And despite all the talking heads on TV, who are either all liars or fools repeating lies, Israel, not Hamas, broke the ceasefire on November 4th, Election Day. Coincidentally enough, wink, wink, they broke the ceasefire by bombing what they said were tunnels that were probably going to be used for some nefarious purpose. Certainly not trying to, trade in medical goods or food or any criminal behavior like that.
In May, there were 149 rocket attacks. In June, before the ceasefire started on the 18th, there were 84. In the rest of June, just 3. Throughout July, August, September and October, there were only 15 attacks, and Israel agrees that none of these rockets were fired by Hamas. On November the 4th, Israel launched an attack that killed 6 Hamas fighters just inside the Gaza Strip. They say the militants were building a tunnel to try and kidnap an Israeli soldier. The result was a fresh barrage of rockets from Hamas. After November the 4th, there were 68 and 52 in December. During the entire period of the ceasefire, no Israelis were killed by Hamas rockets.
Our goals are minimalistic and defensive. Success is freeing the civilian population of southern Israel from the fear of an incoming Hamas rocket.
But if that was the case, there were no Hamas rockets during the ceasefire. Before November the 4th, there were no Hamas rockets for 4 months.
And that's correct. And this crisis started when Hamas threw out the ceasefire.
Surely this crisis started when Israel broke the ceasefire on the 4th of November.
I disagree strongly, sir. Israel acted on the 4th of November defensively because there was a tunnel that was being dug, designed...
But there were no Israeli civilians being killed at that time.
Of course, that's all black market stuff under blockade. Certainly, the only reason they would dig a tunnel would be to attack Israel. So Israel, which had kept Hamas and Gaza under a blockade throughout the entire ceasefire, which was itself a violation of the ceasefire, then attacked the tunnel on November 4th, breaking the ceasefire once and for all, for everyone to see. And then when the Gazans started firing back with their homemade rockets, then the Israelis get to sit there and, for some reason, I guess, as long as everyone between Canada and Mexico has no long-term memory skills whatsoever, they get to sit there and pretend like Hamas started the fight. And even though they've been laying siege to the place and starving people. And, in fact, I think a week before the invasion began, one of the cabinet ministers in Israel proposed that perhaps they should let in some medical supplies, and he was threatened with impeachment for suggesting that possibly they should allow some medical supplies into Gaza.
Hey, Scott.
The blockade.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what the Gaza Strip is and how it was created? From my understanding, it was some kind of a buffer zone to separate the two. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I am not certain on the history of how the Palestinians got penned into Gaza.
Okay.
I believe at one point it was under the jurisdiction of Egypt. Its southern border touches against Egypt. And the Palestinians, of course, are a political football. The American puppet dictatorship in Egypt and the American puppet dictatorship in Jordan and the American puppet dictatorship in Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Oman and Kuwait and all those American puppet dictatorship Islamo-fascist countries, if you like. They don't care about the Palestinians whatsoever. And so they like to, say boo-hoo for the Palestinians when it's good for their own internal politics. But they certainly have done, at least very little to do anything about it. I guess I should amend that a bit by saying that the Saudis have come forward with a plan that the entire Arab League agrees on and which makes perfect sense, which says that the Israelis should get the settlers out of the West Bank, allow the Palestinians to have a separate state in Gaza and the West Bank under the 1967 borders. And I can only tell from the outside. I don't really know for sure, but it seems pretty clear to me that the Israelis have come up with a strategy that says that they should marginalize all the moderates as best they can. They should empower the extremists and the people who are the hardest to deal with as much as they can. Then that way they'll have less pressure to deny when people try to get them to deal.
Now, didn't Israel essentially give the Palestinians their own state in the West Bank and Gaza? I mean, isn't that what has happened there?
No, they took everything but that, and no, they do not have a state at all.
But they have democratically elected people, right?
They've got the West Bank cut into little pieces. There's settlements all over the West Bank, and every road that leads to every settlement has giant concrete walls on either side, keeping people from their property. They destroy orchards and religious sites, and the settlers in the West Bank are the most right-wing lunatic crazies who go around like mobs, beating people, spray painting Stars of David all over Muslim cemeteries, and acting like complete brutes under the cover and protection of the American taxpayer-funded Israeli Defense Forces. And I'm a libertarian, so it's not that I side with one group of people over another in any of these cases. I side with the property rights of individuals over
I agree with
any
that.
collective entity that is violating them.
So
and if I come and take half of your land, and then I give a little bit more land to your second cousin twice removed and tell you that, oh, see there, you got paid back, that's not going to be good enough for you, and I don't know why it should be good enough for any of the Israelis who, are separated from orchards that have been in their families for generations.
You mean Palestinians?
Yeah, what I said.
Okay, you said Israelis. Now, that's something I want to get to here. Is I don't know everything about this situation. It's my understanding, essentially, Israel came into being in 1948, and that its borders were somewhat expanded in some war in the 60s, the 7-Day War or whatever in the 60s, where they just kicked everybody's butt right quick. And that's kind of the way I saw it. Now, to me, I believe that everybody should get their property back, and I'm for that. I just think that there's a point in history where that becomes very difficult. The people, the Cubans that were kicked out of Cuba, they're not getting their property back. No way are they getting property back that's 40 years gone. These Palestinians, if they've been separated for 60 years, probably aren't going to get it either.
And the Saudi plan is, look, let Israel, this is all the Arabs agree. All the Arab states, anyway, agree about this. Let the Israelis keep everything inside the pre-67 borders.
Okay.
Just give up the West Bank and Gaza.
Okay.
So to say that because a settler takes somebody's land in the West Bank, that's just irreversible, well, no, it's not. How about, for example, just stop giving them pieces of my paycheck in order to build them? And let's see if they can build their own settlements on other people's property on their own dime instead of mine and yours.
Because these settlements are very fortified? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about, forts inside engine country here.
Yeah.
Basically.
I totally see that. It would be, if my neighbors were very, very, violently unhappy with me being there, my property would have to be markedly different than it is currently today. So that makes a certain amount of sense. So there's a united.
If you had killed their old next door neighbor and taken his house,
right?
Then they might really have reason to fear you and have a grudge against.
So I'm trying to come up with. I know what the libertarian answer is. The libertarian answer is the United States shouldn't be giving money to either Israel, Palestine, any other country, anywhere. I don't care if it's Canada or Zambia. But beyond that, like there's, a sort of waving the flag of justice is what I would like to do. I used to be a Republican like so many libertarians out there, and I like Israel. I've been to Israel. There's many people that I met there that I really like, so it's difficult for me to look at it from the other. And when I went to Palestine, I felt endangered, and I didn't like it at all. It was a bad experience versus a very good experience in Israel. So that's difficult for me in my mind to line up, and I just want to be able to wave the flag of justice here. And would you say that is then, the United Arab League has come up with some guidelines and basically giving the Gaza Strip and the West Bank to the Palestinians to rule on their own without being hemmed in? Now, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip are both landlocked areas. Is that not so?
Well, I believe the eastern border of of the West Bank touches the Jordan River. It's the West Bank of the Jordan River is what that means.
Okay.
So, yeah, pretty much landlocked. Now, Gaza is on the Mediterranean.
Okay. Oh, Gaza is a very little strip, but the West Bank is a much bigger piece. Is that right?